Well, now we're taking a look at blockchain technology, centralized and decentralized recruitment and retention strategies with Keinan from Simetria, Judith Garb from Robinhood, Warren Anderson from Discrete Labs, Konstantin Richter from Blockdaemon, and Daniel Ice from Charge and Vishakh Null from Cryptonomic.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Ziv, for all of the relevant information you shared and success that you've had with the current market. That was very insightful, and we're really excited to dive in and learn more here regarding hiring best practices for this space. Hello, everyone. I'm Judy Garb. I'm part of the engineering leadership recruiting team here at Robinhood. I support engineering management, hiring, and crypto-related roles, and I've been with Robinhood for just under a year, and I've been in the recruiting space for 12 years. Today's discussion will focus on how we can better serve recruiting for the crypto and blockchain industry. Our goal is to brainstorm some ideas collectively and to have an inside look on how companies are thinking and evolving due to crypto hypergrowth. Before we jump in here, I'd like for all of the panelists to introduce themselves and give a quick 1-minute background on themselves and their company. Any volunteers to go first?
I'm happy to kick it off. My name is Daniel Ice. I go by Dice. I've been in technology for 20 years. I got into crypto in 2017 with the ICO bull market, built an ICO platform, raised $200 million for a dozen clients, distributed about $2 billion in assets. Currently working at decentralized technologies at NAX, which is New Asset Exchange, and Charge is one of our products there. Combines wallet, exchange, and shopping all in one app.
Thank you. Konstantin, would you like to go next?
I do. Hey, apologies, was muted there. I'm Konstantin Richter. I'm the founder and CEO of Blockdaemon. We're the largest node operator in the crypto space. We run nearly 20,000 full nodes across 50 protocols at this point in time. And we're 120 people at this point. We've recruited nearly 100 people this year. Thus my presence here on this panel. Our audience and customers are mostly institutional exchanges, custodians, financial services companies who are looking for really reliable and simple connectors into the cryptoverse on the core infrastructure. We're non-custodial and fully regulatable, aka we have a chief compliance officer. We publish financial auditable accounts. And so forth. So we're sort of a nice little bridge from the craziness and open source nature of crypto to the more closed loop world of finance. But we come from the crazy open source world of crypto, and so that's where we're at home. And excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Vishakh. How about you?
Hi. Great to be here. So after studying machine learning at Columbia, I worked in finance for many years, so over a decade. So I worked at Bear Stearns, JP Morgan, quite a few adventures during the great meltdown of 2008, and a few other interesting events. It made me predisposed to crypto when it started really taking off. So since 2017, I've been part of Cryptonomic, and we're pretty active in the Tezo space. And given our background in institutional finance, we're also active with several financial industry partners. And finance and blockchains, very, very promising. So along with my co-founder, I think pretty sure we did the first ever financial derivative on the Ethereum blockchain. These days we're a lot more focused on Tezos, but always interesting in the crypto world.
Thank you for that, Vishakh. Warren.
How's it going? My name's Warren. I'm VP of Product at Discrete Labs. Discrete Labs is about 50 people spread over 5 continents. We've grown from 8 people at the beginning of the year, so we've grown pretty fast. We are building secure, scalable privacy systems, including Findora, which is a layer 1 public blockchain with programmable privacy. So you can think of it as like a more programmable version of Zcash. A little bit of background on me. I got into crypto pretty early as a miner, a Bitcoin miner in 2011, actually. Started what is now referred to as one of the first DeFi platforms on Bitcoin in 2013 called Hedgie. It was a OTC derivatives platform to allow miners to hedge their volatility with institutional investors. I spent 4.5 years working on the product team at Ripple, and then joined the Discrete Labs team in March. So excited to be here and talk about our journey on recruiting.
Awesome. We're excited too. And then Ziv, would you like to go?
Yeah, so Ziv Keinan, CEO of Simetria, private market, launched out of Israel. My background, I started in 2017. I started the security token lawyers. It was a law firm that was specialized in the DLT project and the combination between DLT and securities. And then I did some interesting work with eToro. I worked there with about 2 years. We launched together the Good Dollar project, a DeFi project with social impact intention, and later I was COO for Onera, which was presenting here earlier. Then I spun out of Onera and created Simetria with the aim to be a private market. As a private market, we're looking for inefficiency within the capital market and trying to solve it. And the speech that I gave before was about one of those inefficiencies.
Great, thank you. Thanks everyone for the introductions. So we'll jump in. Companies in the crypto space have lamented that they can't keep up with customer demands to find enough suitable employees to satisfy their needs. The lack of experienced talent is particularly problematic with the turbocharged crypto community. And companies need highly specialized professionals such as software engineers, compliance, legal, risk, management, marketing, sales, recruiting, to manage and scale their businesses. Crypto firms find it tough to find the appropriately skilled candidates for thousands of open roles across the world. This sector faces a number of challenges recruiting people. And since it's still an emerging area, there aren't a large number of job seekers with 5 or 10 years of relevant experience for the specific nature of most of the job openings. So my first question to you panelists is, we know that the crypto space is super hot right now, but the talent pool is lacking in terms of direct crypto experience, given that it's a newer market and highly competitive. What has been your experience with hiring, and what challenges have you encountered? Anyone want to take that first?
Yeah, hiring's become progressively more difficult, if I'm being honest. There was once an almost arbitrage opportunity because crypto was still an emerging domain. So there were always people who were highly qualified that wanted to make that pivot, wanted to make that switch. So it was relatively easy picking once upon a time. But as the competitiveness has increased and the geographical arbitrage is also sort of almost non-existent now, it's become a lot more difficult to not just hire, but also retain, obviously. This is a good sign for the industry, obviously. It's a huge endorsement for the direction in which things are going. But yeah, it's causing a lot of practical problems, and it's a necessary growing pain for all of us.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think, I've been doing tech for 20 years, and it's a common problem that, a new tech comes out and everybody wants 5 years of experience in it. So that's kind of a story as old as tech, that everybody wants 5 years of experience on something brand new. What I think is more interesting and more difficult to solve is the fact that the economic incentives have not changed with technology cycles in the past, beyond us moving to more of like a startup culture, startup industry. Everybody had a very clear economic incentive around equity, the cap table, the vesting system, and trying to recreate that on chain with instant liquidity for most of these projects is probably the hardest game theory problem out there. And I think that it's going to force, people as they hire to be a lot more inclusive in the upside of the company. And but as a serial founder, it's a real tension that I feel in my heart between I'm taking massive risk to create this thing, with my time, with my energy, with my emotions. And I do want people to work on it, but I don't want people to just kind of come in, take some value out and move on. Like the current startup model does really create like a refining process so that by the time that the liquidity events happen, a lot of value has really been accreted inside of that entity. But, I do think we have a very difficult game theory problem to solve there.
I think I totally agree with Daniel. I think another thing that we need to notice, and I touched upon it in my keynote, is that we have banks now entering this space. So when I'm trying, once I used to interview people, and they had experience, they worked at a few startups before, but now they have offering from JP Morgan, from large institutions. I don't want to name any more names, but like all the big banks are moving into this space, and they're looking for talent as well. So for us, we need to compete with those major players that are moving in. And going back to what Daniel says, this is like what we're constantly thinking with our experts, with our we employ all kind of experts in this field, trying to understand how broken the compensation market is, and how can we solve it, and how can we make it more efficient. Because I think like if there's something which is sure that is the innovation would come from our type of companies. We would reinvent the compensation model and win those talents.
Hey guys, I thought that all super interesting comments. I think first off, I would say that the problematic looks different for different types of companies. I'm not necessarily, I don't know yet if the traditional model of cash and options. I don't think that's obsolete. Like it really depends on how things are structured, right? Like obviously in Silicon Valley and things, people are very, this is a very common issue, and so there's been a lot of evolution, I think, in how you can structure it. For us, and obviously we're VC backed, sort of, let's say a VC blue chip, right? Like we're very VC backed. Like we have folks like Sapphire Ventures or SoftBank or Goldman Sachs on the cap table, and so we're very traditional in that way. But we actually have a very defensible valuation and option pool, right? And so for us, the great thing in the current market, yes, there's a lot of scarcity around great talent, is that also obviously the ability to provide compelling liquidity and best-in-class compensation is huge in this space, right? So companies like us, at least like everyone can raise a ton of money, and valuations currently are really on an upward trend, and so it means you can offer very competitive packages. And so the way we've approached this is more structurally, and so I think the most important thing I would recommend anyone do who's in crypto and works at a crypto company is hire a head of people. The sooner you do that, the better, because it takes time to really refine and learn how to think about recruitment as a sales process, right? And so you want to build a funnel of candidates. You want to work on conversion rate. You want to make sure you have really streamlined tooling. And so for us, putting in place an organization that solves that particular problem efficiently was the most important thing. And we've been very fortunate to half coincidentally fall into this category where early in the year we started to put that, we've started to put a team in place, and then also work with a selected group of recruiters, and then ultimately, came to the conclusion. One of the things we do is, even though we're a remote first company, we allow developers to work wherever in the world. We pay Silicon Valley prices wherever you are. And so that's a reflection of the competitiveness of the landscape, So for us, obviously we're also staking, we have a lot of yield earning parts. It's easy. The business makes more money than we can reasonably spend. And for us, that's an opportunity to take care of our employees, right? That means I don't care where you sit. If you work in Palo Alto or you work in Barbados, we're going to pay you top of the market as if you were a blue chip engineer we hire anywhere in the world. And that's been a real, and that's a budgeting exercise, right? And so that's a exercise in understanding how do you see your cost base evolve, and then how do you capitalize the business for it. Right now it's easy, right? Because you can get capital at such aggressive rates and valuations with businesses who often also are cash flow positive. And so there's very low risk in it. And so I think so there's a compensation side where crypto companies can pay probably more competitively than a JP Morgan, because those companies have bans. It's super complicated for them to hire folks. For us, obviously, it's super easy. The big challenge then on the equity side, it's really a structural and educational purpose. Like it really varies on how you're structured. A lot of crypto companies can't offer reliable equity. What I would say to any engineer out there is don't take equity from a company that doesn't have a board that consists of outside stakeholders. And so one of the things I always find really interesting is when I talk to friends and stuff, and they're, I'm joining this company. Oh, great, yeah, that's awesome. And who's on the board? Like, I don't know. And it's like, well, so if it's a founder-run CEO who controls the majority of your shares, there's very little control that he'll ever convert or allow you to exercise and earn money on these options, for example. And so I think it's really important to understand what's the governance structure of the entity look like, because there's so many examples in this space. And I don't want to, two of the largest players in this market are very famous, and there's a lot of disgruntled ex-employees who said, hey, I worked there for 5 years and left, and I was always promised option, but it never happened. And the one similarity in these companies is that they're run by really strong, great founders and super strong individuals, but who also avoided, having external investors and governance where people actually enforce them to also honor these type of agreement. And so I think the complexity is, and then it gets complicated because once you become an entity that has that sort of regulatable structure, then you're in the land of onshore, kind of like Judy, what you probably have in Robinhood. You got to deal with normal complexities and regulators, and suddenly you're dealing with that whole universe. But so I'm sorry, I'm going on too long. But so what I'm saying is, I think the game theory right now is fairly easy because we have so much capital at disposal as crypto companies, right? And it's easy to convert it into USD if you want to.
Yeah, as in the spirit of panel discussion, I actually may quickly take the opposite path and say, I think hiring in crypto and blockchain has gotten easier. Now, given I've been working in full time in the blockchain space since 2013, when back in the day, maintaining a bank account was actually a challenge. Making payroll was actually a challenge. The market traded less than like 10, 20, $30 million a day. Now it's $1 trillion market. There's a lot more money out there. The talent pool has actually gotten bigger. I no longer have to explain to new candidates what blockchain is or what Bitcoin is. There's like a general understanding of how these technologies are. Even people that don't have like backgrounds, necessarily, they have a rudimentary understanding because there's so many educational materials out there that people can, just look up and read and watch. Their certification programs and can kind of get more into that later. But I actually think, it's gotten, to some degree, it's gotten easier. But on the flip side, it's gotten more competitive. There's more players in the space. There's more money in the space. I think a lot of blockchain crypto companies are competing against, the I guess we used to call them fangs, but now they're mangs. What is it? Manga, whatever. The mangs of the world. But companies are actually being able to do that for a lot of the reasons Konstantin, measured. Like the balance sheets of some of these companies are pretty healthy. And people want to work in crypto. It used to be back in the day where the only people that were really attracted to the crypto space were they had physics backgrounds. They were dropping out of their physics lab. The math department saying what's cool in the industry. Oh, blockchain's cool. I'm going to go work on that. Unless you had experience at some low level programming language that you could work on a protocol, there really wasn't a fit, for you. I had to kind of wedge myself in as a product person and just pick up and learn things very quickly. But now there's actual, there's places for people to go that don't necessarily have a background in that. There's more user interfaces for designers. Being a designer in crypto in 2015 basically only meant you could work at Coinbase because they were the only ones with that actual design. Every other company or project in the space didn't really have much design elements. So I think to some degree it's gotten easier, but it is getting more competitive. I think the talent wars are definitely coming and facing in crypto, which is great. And I kind of say game on. You know, it's if you're at the right company and you're working on the right project, I think the talent will continue to flow.
Thanks for that, Warren. That is a good segue into our next question. There are many people that want to get into this space, but they don't yet have the crypto background. So if you all could share, you know, what are some creative ideas that you recommend for those that are trying to break into the crypto space for a full-time career? And is there a way for any of these individuals to stand out?
Yeah, I think if, you know, my background software development, so just speaking from that, there are probably a lot of ways to work in crypto. There's some very high quality, like coding tutorials on YouTube now that I wish existed back when I got started. Like, just sit down, watch those, actually type out what they're doing, get yourself some live projects on some test nets, and really build a resume of deployed and shipped and verifiable code. And that's like the DIY, I'm just going to learn this thing and kind of go that route. I found some of my best blockchain engineers by looking at projects that were like done out of pure passion. Like, I needed some help on ERC20s. I found somebody that wrote an amazing ERC20 tracker. His link was in the footer. I followed it, reached out to him, found that way. So like, if you start writing open source software, or if you start building a verifiable and like demonstratable, like blockchain is a public thing, just get out there, ship some code, show that you know how to think about this stuff.
That's great insight. Anyone else want to chime in about some ways for individuals to stand out?
Sure. I think I think there's two ways, right? There's also the question, how can you stand out as a company, right? And so I think, like, you know, obviously if you're a talented engineer, participate in a community, you'll drown in job offers, exactly as Daniel said. That's the way to do it, right? Is like we try to train our community leads to look out in the discords for people and developers that, you know, seem really smart, and find out, hey, are they actually an individual developer or someone who's actually working for a company? And so that's a great way to do it. The other thing I always actually tell our new hires and folks coming in is, what I still love about crypto, and we're probably at the last generation of that, is you can go to LinkedIn even and look around in your area. You can kind of search by where you live on, like, you know, crypto enthusiasts and meetups and stuff. And I always recommend going to that. And I've actually really proactively reached out to a lot of people. I find people in crypto are very communicative. So if you're knowledgeable and interested, and you're like, hey, I live, you know, not too far from you, I'm super excited about Project X, I saw you commented on Twitter, let's have a coffee, people will take you up on it. Like, there's a lot of folks who are super passionate about it. For us, one of the key things outside of publicly trying to support protocols and really align ourselves with foundations and contributing to the communities is really important. So we try to commit resources and pay open source developers to develop a good brand within the respective communities. And then, you know, we convert, depending on the roles, we have sort of a pattern. For engineering, we like people who did a lot of DevOps, data center type work. And then we have a course for them when they come on. We call it the Blockdaemon University. It's probably sounds a little fancy, but you know, we can train them with a fixed program in a month to be fairly proficient in the methodology in which we run certain core components of infrastructure, for example. And then the same is true for example, for someone who has a sales background. There's a little bit of a different program. And so what we've learned is, and there are certain types of people we like. We like people who worked at Salesforce or Stripe, so we kind of have lists of companies where we say, hey, people and activities, and if we find there's a pattern there, we create courses and an onboarding experience that you know, takes advantage of it. But you do kind of have to convert people externally, for sure. There is definitely, but I actually agree with Warren. I think it is easy. There's a lot of people who want to work in crypto, and getting them efficient quickly is then also the really big thing I think you need to think about. But yeah, and so the onboarding experience and how they get to work, how the company is even structured. Like, we always debate, do we want to train experts? So you're a guy who works on Polkadot and you just know Polkadot. A lot of engineers like variety, but then for the company, it's like, oh, I really want an expert. And they're like, well, I want to work on these 3 different protocols. And so you got to sort of meet people halfway and then give them the opportunity ultimately to work on cool shit, right? Like, I mean, that's what everyone really wants to do here. Money is, everyone can make a lot of money in crypto at this point. It's really how you get people enthused about what they're working on.
Yeah, I totally agree. Similar to what Dice, I like that. Similar to what Dice said, as a software developer, most of these technologies are open source. So, and there's always GitHub issues that you can cherry pick across every project. A lot of them are smaller and bite-sized. There's even documentation issues that you can contribute to. So having, if you're a software developer, having a pretty healthy contribution on GitHub, where even if you're doing nights and weekends, to kind of build up your portfolio of GitHub contributions, I think is huge. When we go to hire, software developers, it's one of the first things we look at is, how does their GitHub profile look like? How active are they? What projects have they worked on? What's the diversity of projects? And that's just like, it's kind of getting into the door. If you're non-technical, you have a BD background, you have finance background, you have marketing background, Konstantin kind of hit it on the head. And this whole space has really evolved out of crypto meetups, and they're so fun. I remember going to a few where there was maybe a dozen and like a bunch of pizzas. Now they're being hosted at like the top of the market, in these beautiful luxury buildings and places. So the bar has gone up for a lot of these meetups. But, just the other day, I was at a meetup just during the week, and someone, showed up and said they didn't work in crypto, they didn't work in blockchain, they just had questions. And, like Konstantin said, most of the people in crypto are very open. They're willing to share. Most overshare, in fact. You always know when someone works in crypto because they won't shut up about it. So I'm one of them. So, just talking with people, do a little homework before you go. Have a little bit of understanding, but then just listen, because they will talk. Like, people will talk, and you'll learn a lot.
More often than not, though, these days we're working with a lot of people who come in with no background, right? So they've heard of crypto because it's big enough now, but they don't come in with a practical sort of understanding of crypto. So what we've observed is across roles, across seniorities, across ages, across demographics, one thing that really helps is just for the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks even, just have people engage with crypto. It doesn't matter what their role is, right? So in 2018, we started by just giving people a little bit of ETH and telling them to just go play with CryptoKitties for a week or two. Sometimes people got a little bit too addicted. But now there's such a sophisticated ecosystem, right? You can bring someone in and you can say, make yourself a wallet, give me your address, you send them some crypto, and then you can give them a bunch of different tasks which are really engaging. So in just a few days, they can cover DeFi, they can cover NFTs, they can cover playing with wallets. So you get this. So all these people that you bring in, regardless of the language they speak or their age or whatever, they're able to really concretely engage, which wasn't possible before. And that's a huge bonus that we have today in terms of just onboarding people. And one of the things that we do is, we have a pretty diverse team, and some people that we work with, they have a lot of infrastructure challenges. So, in the United States, we barely think about electricity or or broadband or whatever. But we do work with people in certain parts of the world where it can be a challenge, and it's interesting because through this onboarding experience, you can see from their eyes what some of the foundational UX or the infrastructural challenges with using crypto are. So this whole onboarding process of being immersive, it actually provides us with a lot of intelligence about how to fine-tune products, how to fine-tune the professional experience of working in crypto that's compatible with people in every corner of the world.
Yeah, all very good points. I think someone mentioned geos too, and obviously that's really important and comes into play now when thinking about hiring. With that, I think Konstantin, you mentioned that you hired. Oh, I'm sorry, Warren. You have hired in 5 different continents, so I'm sure you have a lot to say about balancing different time zones, especially for international folks. So how does that work, internationally and even just domestically?
Yeah, sure. So saying in crypto, crypto never sleeps. It's a 24/7, 365 network, and the market follows. So as a result, if you're a company that's working in crypto blockchain, you likely have employees that also don't sleep as a result of them being in multiple time zones. So we are spread out, like I said, over 5 different continents. We try to basically double up as many things, company related things as possible. So if we have certain mandatory syncs, we try to make them available, twice for, one half of the globe and another for the other half. It's a challenge actually onboarding. There are some countries that make it very difficult to operate, to set up an operation. And they actually require you to have a full-fledged company, based in the country of that the employee is operating out of, and then the steps and the hoops to actually create that company is multiple years. So that becomes, there's some countries you just, unless you have some other method of being able to employ them, it's nearly impossible, which is really a travesty because I think talent is in every country, right? Especially with this technology. So payroll is also very difficult. Crypto, ironically, makes it a little bit easier because now you have people are willing to get paid in, for instance, in stable coins. Where the payroll kind of becomes a little bit easier. But generally, it's if you're running a multinational company in crypto, it's going to the sleep is going to be a challenge, that's for sure.
I just want to add that I agree with everything that Warren said. So for these reasons, historically, Europe or the sort of EMEA zone was seen as being optimal, right? Just because it kind of lies in the middle. And one thing we've realized is there's actually, unsurprisingly, in retrospect, there is a lot of talent in Africa which is actually pretty crypto native in comparison. And there are companies such as Novustack in Africa that are doing a lot of great work bringing in this talent, highly educated people from engineering colleges in Nigeria, for example, giving them a crypto background and making them available for hire. They take care of the infrastructure, take care of the payroll challenges, the payment challenges, and so on. And they make it really easy for a blockchain company like ours or anyone else's to just focus on the work and the detail gets taken out. Once you take the detail out, it makes it much easier to work with people in markets like Africa. And South America is also, there are people who have smelt the opportunity. They make it very easy to connect with crypto-enabled talent. They take care of all the regulatory and legal aspects. And for us personally, it's made life a lot easier, especially in a sort of multi-continent workforce. So I think I would encourage anyone who's listening in, anyone on this, anyone who watches this later, places like Africa, South America, there's so much potential. There's a absolute nuclear arms race already in North America, in Europe, in India, all places that we used to really focus on before. But now we're really enthused about the quality and especially with these intermediary companies like Novustack, just being able to seamlessly hire from there.
That's great. We started to kind of talk about this, but I wanted to see if anyone else wanted to dive a little bit deeper. Has anyone, had some really creative ways to overcome this smaller talent pool or any other challenges that they've seen? What have been some successes and wins that you can almost shout from the rooftops?
Well, I think one way to do it, which I'm not overly proud of, but is we actually, we always worked with external recruiters, and I'm going to do a lot with for the recruitment industry here. But one of the things we've done is actually call them all up and tell them that we want to be the first person they call if they meet an talented individual, and that we will give them a signing fee on top of our current fee structure to them. And so it's a really simple thing, but obviously very powerful, right? Because all the recruiters, for example, in the space work with 20, 50 companies at the same time. And so the question is not also, how do you stand out to the recruiters so you can make sure that, every time someone talented comes across their desk, the first phone call they make is to Blockdaemon, right? And so we have incentive mechanisms for that as well, right? And so, and I think that for us has been one of the reasons why we've been so successful in hiring so many talented people with experience also in the space, is that we build referral fees and signing fees at a multitude of what we pay traditionally. I think I can give you one interesting metrics is, I think if you look into buy a company in the crypto space that has a crypto engineer working on a product that works with experience, it's like $5 million per engineer. Like the old adage in Silicon Valley was like, it was 2 million per engineer. I feel at this moment in time, if you look at the market and the insane valuations, like if you were looking to buy a company and there's 10 engineers on it working on a product that actually works, it's a $50 million business. I mean, it's insane, but it's the way it is. And so I think a lot of folks don't think about the cost of capital associated to hiring someone with a lot of talent. And so I always feel like that people think way too little about it and are way too greedy around certain bits, like, oh, $5,000 or $10,000 and here and there, and how does that work? And it's like the actual cost of a quality crypto contributor is so beyond that, that understanding that and baking a different way of thinking around it into your commercial model and how you address that is for us was always very easy, because we tried buying companies in the space and we were always floored around like, wow, if I could recruit the same people, if I would apply the same funds to recruiting, I mean, that's insane. Like you could do a lot of different things. And so you gotta assign a larger budget to it, I find.
Yeah, we actually pay employees $10,000 per hire that they bring in. And that has been so successful. And that's the best money I think ever spent. And as a result, we actually haven't had to use that many external recruiters, because the employees are the best advocates for the company. They want to work with talented people. They want to work with their friends. So we are happy to pay that, every time. And, and it's been really successful, I think, as a program. And I would much rather pay, our employees that money than an external recruiter. Love the external recruiters, nothing against them, but I'd rather pay, our employees. So I think that's
I would
a
actually
great
pay
example.
employees a multitude of that. So for our internal referrals, just so you know, like we pay them more than we pay the recruiters, and we also pay them a lot more than the 10K, because we think that's the right answer. Is like ultimately these folks are so deep in the space, but we are really very careful in describing to people who we're looking for and also incentivizing them. And so and that's what I meant, not like that makes sense. But those are the traditional referral models, right? Like it's always like 5 or 10K, for example, which is like, sure. But in crypto land, you have a kid working on sushi for a weekend, and it's like, oh, I made $100 million on paper, and my NFT just sold for 180,000. And then you're trying to kind of, okay, how can I structure something a little more real worldy that motivates that person to seriously think about this? It's complicated for sure, but yeah, you can. I totally agree that there's a lot of incentive, like a lot more that can be done with businesses putting cash where it needs to go for talent.
Good. Thank you for that. There's also, we touched upon this a little bit in our conversations here, but in terms of getting creative with ways that we're acclimating people into blockchain and the crypto industry, has anyone tried training programs, apprenticeships, anything that kind of, brings people within the company of I'm going to give you an opportunity to try out this space or even like, internships, but maybe not directly from colleges. Has that been something that any of you have thought of or have achieved?
Yeah. So I think a number, like Konstantin mentioned with the Blockdaemon University and stuff like that. I work with the Dreyfus model of skill acquisition, which basically walks you from rules to intuition. There's 5 levels of leadership there. And what happens is people that have high degrees of rules tend to go from that level 1 to level 2 very quickly. And then over osmosis, you go from level 2 to level 3. Getting beyond the level 3 talent's very hard. And so the danger that a lot of crypto projects encounter is they bring a lot of talent in, they train the talent, but the talent doesn't know about the really hard parts, like they're a little weak on their Solidity contracts, or they have a bug in the protocol, and those are things that can kind of blow up the whole project. So just balancing and having that experience in the room, and not just like wanting to hear what you want to hear, and I know this is a crazy word, but taking things a little slower in the blockchain space, making sure that the tech you're building is really, really solid, I think is really critical in kind of balancing new and incoming talent, because there is an overconfidence bias, especially if you have people who've been in software for a while, where there's a lot of undos. There's no undos in a lot of these blockchain problems.
Anyone else want to chime in there? Or should we move on to the next question?
Well, really quick, the youth are the future, of course. We've had, maybe it's because of the pandemic, but we've actually had a bunch of undergrads sort of working part-time. It's pretty low stakes, obviously, but it gives them an opportunity to slowly imbibe sort of our company culture as well as crypto. And very often it's worked out really, really well. So I don't know if it's just a generational shift that undergrads especially have so much free time to work on crypto and within a crypto company and hang out in the chat, but it works out, and I'd recommend it.
Awesome. Well, this has been a really great discussion with all of you. Thank you so much for all of your time and for just this deep dive in what we're facing right now in the talent market. It was so great to meet all of you, and I appreciate getting a chance to hang out here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Judy.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank
Real
you.
pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.